A toxic environment is not toxic for everyone. Some people thrive in the very environment in which you and I wither. So why does not everyone react to the same environment in the same way? And how do we create an environment in which we excel? As someone who has made it their mission to create an environment where I can succeed, this is a topic which is very close to my heart. I've talked about why I left the UK before. Part of the reason was that I couldn't identify with the culture. I felt disillusioned with the state of the country, and I was also just craving different points of view and ways of living. I was at odds with my immediate environment, which is one of the reasons why I left. However, this had more to do with my own internal state than it did to do with any external culture or events taking place in my immediate environment. And this is kind of the point, which I'm going to expand on in just a minute. Our internal environment is just as important as the external one around us. Only when we are clear on what we want and what our values are can we make any meaningful decisions about what kind of environment we actually need. The nature versus nurture debate has been raging for a while now, but it's very clear to me that not all humans are the same, meaning some people wither and some people thrive in the very same environment. So why is that? Well, part of it is character and psychology, but part of it is also just to do with our own internal motivation. What do we want and how badly do we want it? This is a question which arguably the world's greatest bodybuilder of all time used to achieve his greatness. Yes, I'm talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger. He did not have a good childhood. By all accounts, he was beaten and abused by his father, and yet he attributes this brutal environment to his worldly success. It was what drove him on and created this insatiable desire to achieve more. He conquered the worlds of bodybuilding, then acting, then politics, and one could really say that it was these childhood demons which drove him on. But this very same abusive childhood environment broke his brother. It drove him to alcoholism and ultimately to his death in a car crash. The point here is that the environment was obviously toxic, and yet one of them did not perceive it that way. One of them was able to use the toxicity as fuel for the fire, while the other one was consumed by it. The importance of creating an environment tailored specifically to my needs is something that I've become acutely aware of in my professional career. I'm someone who values routines and rituals. I need a degree of certainty in my life, and this is not something I think about a lot. It's just built into my unconsciousness. Uncertainty makes me very uneasy, and I used to think that this was kind of human nature, but I've since learned this is definitely not the case. Many people inflict chaos on themselves and their immediate environment, especially in the workplace. Some are not aware of their actions, but others implement it as a way of manipulating the environment in their favor, and this always comes to the detriment of the team and the company in question. This all came to a head for me when I experienced a management change at a previous job. The parameters of success changed overnight. I went from being valued for consistency, for reliability and structure, to a manager that wanted to tear all of these routines and rituals down through destructive chaos. This manager stated openly that myself and other team members were too rigid in our areas of responsibility, and we needed to break these in order to be more creative. I wholeheartedly reject the idea of creative chaos. I think the only way to get to creativity is through consistency, through consistently practicing through trial and error to see what works. And this is not about destruction or tearing things down. This is about accumulative iterations on the process. As this was a company that had quite a thick manual of guidelines, many of which were backed up by legal ramifications, this created a huge amount of confusion and chaos within the team. It took a mere matter of months for political mind games and emotional manipulation to replace personal responsibility and teamwork. Now, I fully understand that both order and chaos lead to toxicity in the extreme. Maybe there was a grain of truth in my manager's observation. Sometimes it is necessary to make extreme changes. But it's never advisable to throw the baby out with the bathwater. This is always a recipe for disaster. Getting rid of structure and routines means getting rid of certainty and conviction. When people don't know what they are meant to do in a business context, it creates an environment where bad actors rise to the top. Chaos is used to cover up insecurities and points of weaknesses, whereas order is used to guard against these very things. It is so easy to hide in a chaotic environment. nobody can really track who is doing what, and nobody can really deduce what is working and what is not working. If you are not very competent, chaos is a great way to deflect from your own failings. Needless to say, it did not take long before this new manager and myself came up against irreconcilable differences, and so I left. So what does this story have to do with never tolerating a toxic environment again? Well, environment could be understood as anything in your immediate surroundings, but I boil it down into two fundamentals: your internal state and external people. Behaviors and habits all start with a single thought. A toxic mind leads to toxic behavior, which creates a toxic environment. You're probably familiar with the quote, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with," or words to that effect. Well, the first of those 5 people is you, yourself. And the most important relationship you will ever have is the one in which you have with yourself. This is why it is so important to build credibility with ourselves and to manage the negative voice within our own heads. Our internal state determines how we see the world, and the world is largely constructed by other people. The house we live in, the clothes we wear, the food we eat, the content we consume, all of this has been created by other people. Other people with their own beliefs and their own values and their own agendas. This is why the environment in which we put ourselves is so important. It can make or break us. And yes, sometimes there are many things outside of our control, but I assume if you are watching this, you are living in a voluntary environment, and if things are not working, you are free to make a change. You do not have to tolerate your current situation. As I experienced firsthand with the management change, it only takes a few different decisions on one new key player to bring a healthy working environment to its knees. But the reverse is also true. You are only one step away from starting to create a healthy environment for yourself. It all comes back to what I said at the very beginning of this video. Our internal environment contributes to the external one around us. Only when we are clear on what we want and what our values are can we make any meaningful decisions about what kind of environment it is that we need. If you don't really know what you want, if you don't have a clear vision for how your life should be, you will naturally gravitate towards strong people that do have this. And this is where the toxicity begins. So the only way to avoid getting caught in a toxic environment is to have a clear vision, to have very clear-cut values, and to have the courage to stand by them. This is what guides us in times of difficulty. If you don't have a vision yet, don't worry, start small. I know that structure and routines are very important for me. This is not a vision, this is just basic self-knowledge. When I feel my environment getting out of control, this is my warning signal. I do hope this helped you in some way. Thanks so much for watching. If you would like to keep in contact, please do sign up to my newsletter. That's the best way to get in touch with me. That's it for today. Take care, and I will see you very soon in the next one. Bye-bye.